Good evening, church. Welcome to another Bible study here on a lovely June evening. We'd like to welcome those who are in chapel and those who are online as we continue our journey through the book of Proverbs. Our pastor has been going through the book, and he continues with his teachings, his lessons, his guiding of us through the lessons in Proverbs. Before we get started, I'd just like to open with a quick word of prayer, and we can delve right in afterwards. So let us pray. Dear Lord, we'd just like to thank you for once again another lovely day that you have provided us. We'd like to thank you for all the gifts that you bring to us. We'd like to thank you for the gift of love, the gift of mercy, the gift of praise. We'd like to thank you for the gift of knowledge, the gift of understanding, the gift of learning. We'd like to thank you for the opportunity that you have given to us to exercise these gifts. We ask that you allow us to truly utilize them to their fullest this evening. We ask these mercies in your name, we pray. Amen. We'd like to ask the praise team to guide us through the next aspect of this worship. All right. Hello.
Good evening, sisters and brothers. Welcome to everyone, those who are present here in the church, those who are joining us on either the Zoom or the YouTube platform. We are grateful to God for the opportunity that we have to be sharing around His Word in this our midweek service. And yes, we are in this second month of June. We have been, for the past perhaps 10 or 11 weeks, looking at, reflecting on, thinking about, sharing around the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs. We have made some observations about this book. And one of them is that Proverbs is not a book that is going to present us with high theological doctrines and themes. You're not going to find explicit statements on redemption, sanctification, creation, and all of the theological themes. What it does is it assumes these themes and makes the point that life lived in faith is not lived out in the temple, but in the marketplace, on the streets, and at home. So some would like to say Proverbs is about theology from below. Theology from below, making the important point that though worship and themes like those may not be central in this book of Proverbs, those higher theological themes, those liturgical practices, will mean nothing if they are not accompanied by lives that are pleasing to God. So what you get from Proverbs, as you have been noticing, are some practical, down-to-earth, everyday reality. This is how you live out your life every day. So we have been saying that that's really what the book is about. It is about wisdom. And wisdom we have defined from the Bible as the skill to navigate life. The skill to navigate life. And we have learned from Proverbs that wisdom, its foundation is in God, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, meaning the starting point, meaning the foundation upon which wisdom is built, meaning the priority, the best part, and that wisdom works itself out in obedience and in trust. That wisdom is a gift that God gives to his people. But though it is a gift, it is both a gift and a task. You receive this gift, but you have to work it out. In other words, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And we have been saying that wisdom has many sides to it and many ways to understand it. It includes that ability to choose between right and wrong, which we call discernment. It means living with self-control, which we call disciplined living. It's about making sound decisions, decisions that are governed by righteousness, by justice, and by equity. It is about being guided by discretion. That is the foresight to look beyond the immediate and to assess all the options and to make decisions in dealing with God. The book itself presents to us as a teacher, passing on to the students the important principles of life garnered from years of experience, passed down from one generation to the next by God. So the faith that has lived itself out in the reality, has worked itself out in the reality of life, and is passed down from one generation to the next. So we have been noticing that most of the chapters in the first 9 chapters begin with my son. That is, son there talking to someone who is inexperienced, someone who is perhaps naive, someone who is seeking after the experience and the knowledge of life. But they are not the only persons that wisdom is designed for, according to the book. But those who are already wise will gain more and live more faithfully in and through their ways. So that's what we have been talking about, this book of Proverbs and wisdom, living the wise living, if you wish, navigating life and the skills to live out life. Last week, we noticed and we spent some time dealing with the theme of giving. This week, we are going to look at another theme from this book of Proverbs. And so tonight, we are saying that speech matters, or we are looking at speech matters. Speech matters. From our reading of portions of the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, which we have called the foundation to this book, we notice that there is a question that often confronts the student, the son, the person who is in the classroom, either in the temple or at home. That the question confronting the son, the simple one, the inexperienced one, is this: to whom will you listen? Who are you listening to? Amidst all the voices coming at you, voices coming from the gang of evil men, chapter 2, from Lady Folly, chapters 4 or 5, from Lady Wisdom, from the teacher, all kinds of voices. Voices of seduction, voices that seem to be encouraging violence, and voices of instruction, that the student is constantly encouraged to listen to the voice of wisdom and listen to the teacher and to heed the call of Lady Wisdom. So we can say that the most important trait for the students of wisdom, is discerning, the ability to choose between right and wrong. So let's just call it discerning listening. Discerning listening. That is that ability to choose the right path and to identify the traps, the snare, as they come along the right path. So when you read the first 9 chapters, you hear this constant refrain: my son, listen to the teachings of your fathers. Do not forsake the teaching of your mother. And that is a constant refrain coming throughout this book. So the idea of listening, discerning listening, the ability to choose the right path and to hear the right voice among the myriads of voices and among the many paths that are presented to us, is an invitation and a challenge of the first 9 chapters of this book of Proverbs. In the second portion of the book, not listening now, but speech emerges as a dominant and important theme. When you're reading from chapters 10 to chapter 29, chapters 10 through 29, or chapter 10 to chapter 29, when you're reading those chapters, you will notice that the idea of speech is becoming a dominant theme in and among the Proverbs. Why do we say this? We say this because of the number of proverbs, the number of sayings related to speech that we will find present in these chapters, and we will look at a few of them tonight. So from that, we can make a conclusion, or we can come to a conclusion. We can conclude that speech, what we say, what comes out of our mouth, how we talk one to another, is a true indicator of whether one is wise or foolish. That speech is a measure, an indicator of whether one is wise or foolish. What is said, how it is said, when it is said, why it is said are all important to the teacher and are all important lessons that the teacher tries to pass on to the student. So if you're going to live this life of faith, you have to watch what you say. But a little song we used to sing in church, watch your lips, what they say. But there is a Father up above looking down in tender love. We're not going to sing it tonight, but it is important. So the teacher suggests that words are not innocuous, that they are not benign, but can impact others for good or ill. That the words that we use, that they play an important role in maintaining harmony and the well-being of society. That's what Proverbs seem to be saying about speech. And so tonight, we are going to be embarking upon that reflection, that overview of what are the lessons about speech, about how we relate one to another, how we communicate with each other, that we can learn from this proverb. But before we do that, I have a little task for you. Remember, we said at the very beginning of this series that in a sense, the book of Proverbs bears some similarity to the Proverbs that we have in our own land and our own time. It really is God's wisdom that is learned and lived over generation, that it has been encapsulated, captured in short sayings, and passed on from one generation to the next so that they can be remembered, and in remembering them, we can practice them. So similarly, the proverbs that we share in our land are very often serve the same purpose. The wisdom of God, some of them, or most of them, coming through experience, captured and placed, encapsulated in small, bite-sized statements that are then passed on from one generation to the next. So here's my little task for you to see how much you know about Jamaican proverbs. What are the proverbs that we use in our country, in Jamaica, Jamaican proverbs, or even other English sayings that gives us or passes on to us lessons about speech and about communicating? Can you remember any? I remember one, and I will start to make it easy for you. You know, one says cock mouth. That is one. You remember any more? Let's make a note of them and see if they are held up by the biblical text as we go along or dismissed by them. You have any more? If you're on YouTube, you can put your comments in the chat. If you're on Zoom, you can open your mic and share or raise your hand. What are you? Or if you're here, you may have to use the microphone. No, right? Okay. Someone saying, not everything good for eat, good for talk. All right? Let's write that one down too. So we have two. Cock mouth kill cock. Not everything good for eat, good for talk. That's two. Yes. No. Yeah.
If you don't hear, you will feel.
That one, what do you think about that one? It qualifies? That one's a little bit different, but we remember that one nonetheless. All right? Yes. And any other?
What about deaf ears give liar trouble?
Deaf ears give liar trouble. What do you think? What do you think? Yes. All right. There's another one that says, "Sea come out, fish get catch." That could work. All right, that one could work. All right, deaf ears give liar trouble. We may have to put that on the other list as well. Sea come out, fish get catch. What other one? I bet you know the American sayings, but you don't know your own. So we have three: cock mouth kill cock, sea come out, fish get catch, and everything good for eat, good for talk. What else you remember?
Little pepper burn big man mouth.
Yes, little pepper burn big man mouth. How that one work? You think, what does that say about speech? You want to help interpret that one for us? Yeah.
Probably this is not a proverb, but it's speak the truth and speak it ever.
Okay, yes, speak the truth and speak it. It's a saying, we can use that. Speak the truth and speak it ever, cause it what it will.
He who hides the wrong he did will do the wrong thing still.
All right, okay. What about sticks and stones may break my bones, but words. Although we'll discover that Proverbs don't agree with that one, but we can put it down still as part of our own wisdom.
If you say Jamaican proverb, what about when trouble take you, picnic short fit you? I don't know where to put that, but it's a Jamaican proverb, but it is possibly not in Proverbs.
We're specifically dealing with speech. Proverbs that deals with speech. Yeah. That deals with speech. But
Dale Miller.
yeah, yes.
Dale Miller on YouTube says, "Wall have ears,
Wall have ears,
and bush have eyes to see."
and bush have eyes to see. Okay. Sister Bev Wilmot.
Yes.
And
What about,
she
it's a
the
saying,
man who writes the book of Proverbs.
it's a saying, it's like, keep your mouth, which
Keep by your
means
mouth,
don't
yes,
talk
yes.
too much.
Yes, keep by your mouth. All right, yes. That's a nice Jamaican phrase. Keep by your mouth. Yes. So, all right. So let's make a note of them, and as we go through the Proverbs, we will see if any of them conform or is in conflict with the biblical teaching and with the lessons being passed on from this book on the value and the importance of speech. I want us to start with looking at verse 4 of chapter 15 of Proverbs. And I think you're going to put it up there for us. Proverbs 15, verse 4. And we want to spend a moment or two reflecting on this. It's up? Okay, Proverbs 15, verse 4. Could someone, not seeing it here, could someone read it for us, please? It's a simple proverb, or maybe all of us could read it, you think? Let's read it together. Proverbs 15, verse 4. Let's go together now.
The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue
Crushes the spirit. Is that one you could learn by heart, you think? Could be a memory verse. What does it say again? Let's say it again. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Chapter 15 and verse 4. And there's you notice I've underlined or placed in red the idea of the tree of life. The tree of life. So the soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. And immediately, a kind of a contrast to that is Proverbs 12 and verse 18. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Let's focus for a moment, just a brief moment, on the tree of life. And these are some of the subtle ways that the book of Proverbs, the wisdom literature, lines itself up with the Old Testament in general and captures some themes in subtle ways and uses them and sometimes builds on them. I'm speaking specifically here of the tree of life. You, as a good student of the Bible, when you hear the tree of life, what do you think about? What comes back to your mind? What do you remember? Adam and Eve. You remember the Garden of Eden. Is that what comes to your mind? So Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, is now using that image of the tree of life coming from the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden. So this image, or utilizing the Garden of Eden, this is not the only place it is used in the book of Proverbs, this alluding to the Garden of Eden. When you have time, you could look at chapter 3 and verse 18, and you will notice a similar reference. Chapter 11 and verse 30, and chapter 13 and verse 2. So here is a reference, an allusion to the Garden of Eden here in this book of Proverbs. And it may be interesting for you to know that Proverbs is the only book in the Old Testament that will make these references to this Garden of Eden. I mean, outside of the story itself, the other books in the Old Testament that will make these references to the Garden of Eden, and in particular to the Tree of Life. Only book where this image is identified and noted. So the question is, why is the teacher in Proverbs pointing to this image of the Tree of Life from the Garden of Eden? What is the lesson that the teacher wants to pass on to the student with this reference, this allusion? And here is a suggestion that wise speech points us back to Eden. Wise speech points us back to Eden. And in a sense, what the teacher is doing is holding up for us the restorative power of speech. The restorative power of speech. So wise speech points us back to Eden, highlighting for us the restorative power of speech, making this point that speech has the power to effect healing of persons, of community, of nations, healing at the deepest level. So restorative speech, when we say it points us back to Eden, we say that restorative speech brings harmony between persons and God, between persons, God, and creation. That is what I believe the teacher in Proverbs wants to pass on to the student who would have been familiar with all of the references to the Old Testament by being unique in the Old Testament in identifying this Tree of Life as important and relating speech to the Tree of Life. So you see what's going on here? That a statement is being made that wise speech takes us back to Eden. A statement is being made that about the restorative power of speech, the power of speech to restore and to restore life, to take us back to that which God intended. That speech has the power to effect healing at the deepest level. That when we talk about restorative speech, it is about bringing harmony between persons and God and persons. Think about it for a moment. Let's work the image for a little while and go back to that Genesis reference. Go back to the Garden of Eden. Who created the heavens and the earth? It's not who? Who created the heavens and the earth? God. How? How did God do it? By speech, by the word. So God proclaimed and it came into being. All right? Right? Bear that in mind. Now, after that, God spoke and brought human beings into being. According to Genesis 2 and about verse 9 thereabouts, and if you, from your own memory, as good students of the Bible, what was the first duty, independent duty given to humanity? First independent duty given to humanity. It had something to do with the animals. Huh? Name the animals. So it was a verbal task, would you say? It was a verbal, it's a speech task, a verbal and an oral task. So what can we draw from that? We can draw from that God spoke and it came into being. So you're getting life, you're getting creation from God's speech, that God, in God's own wisdom, give humanity this responsibility. And humanity, by this speech, is, in a sense, naming, creating community, identifying and creating identity by naming these animals. And then later on, something happened, a new speech situation emerged. The serpent in this description of the early creation, the serpent had a conversation with human beings. Is that what Genesis said? Right, had a conversation. So this conversation can be interpreted in this way. We are now seeing the introduction of perverted speech, So God spoke. What was God's speech? About creation, about community, about life, about harmony. That was God's speech. That humans spoke. It was about identity, was still about community, and still about life. That's the speech. And then we have a new kind of speech entering the situation now through the serpent, and it is perverted speech. Perverted speech is, in a sense, led to the degrading of speech. And what was the nature of perverted speech? Would you say it was seductive? Huh? It was beguiling. Those were some features of it. It was evasive, not so clear, giving you half of a story and then carrying you on. And it had to do with blaming. There was some blaming going on there, and eventually it led to alienating. So, if we are going to, in a sense, read the theology into Proverbs, and we are using this image of the tree of life relating to speech from chapter 15 and verse 4, and we are reflecting, going back to that whole story, we saw God's intention for speech to be restorative, about creation and about life. And we are seeing where on one hand there is restorative speech, and on the other hand there is perverted speech. And that's where the challenge is, and the challenge has become, and we are defining and describing perverted speech as seductive speech, beguiling, evasive, blaming, and eventually alienating. So it's a problem. So this perverted speech is geared towards hurting others, and eventually it worked towards the destruction, self-destruction of the speaker. So let's take that as a kind of foundation, can we? A kind of a foundation to God's intention for speech as being reflected here in the book of Proverbs, using as our launching point chapter 15 and verse 4. What does it say again? The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but perverse tongue crushes the spirit. That the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongues of the wise brings healing. And we are making this contrast between restorative speech and perverted speech. All right, having done that, let's do a little survey of some aspects of this book of Proverbs. And let's talk about how it helps us in our speech. All right, let's start by looking at chapter 10. Can you help us here? Verse 19. Chapter 10 and verse 19. Can we get a reader? We have a few Proverbs here to be read about. Read them and pause a little bit. Can we get chapter 10 and verse 19? Can someone read that for us? And let's think about it for a moment. I made sure to put it up in the King James Version. That's a nice one to remember. And then for us to understand it, we use the NIV. Someone online, read it for us, please. One of our Zoomers. or someone in church, if this,
In the multitude of words, there wanteth not sin. But he that refraineth his lips is wise. King James Version.
right?
Sin,
Continue.
sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues.
Right?
Proverbs 11:12.
That's NIV, yes. Go on, continue.
Whoever derides their neighbor.
Before you leave there, let's talk about that one for a little bit. In the so the teacher, having made the point about restorative speech and perverse speech, perverted speech, some advice is now being given to the students, and we're going to take it as advice being given to us. In chapter 10 and verse 19, there is this statement, in the multitude of words there wanteth not sin. That is King James language. But he that refraineth his lips is wise. Or sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. Or the New Living Translation, too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. That's the New Living Translation. And the Message interpretation, the Message Bible, the more talk, the less truth. The wise measure their words. Let me do it again. King James, in the multitude of words there wanteth not sin, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. The more talk, the less truth. The wise measure their words. Question, what is the advice being given here? What is the advice? What is the advice being given here? Oh, yeah, that's a little more elegant. Sister Yulette was saying, don't chat too much, but we find that a little inelegant, don't you? Yes. She's refraining it to be measured in your speech. Is that the advice being given? Is that it? You want to think about it for a moment. Yeah. Teeth and tongue must meet. Okay, so the Jamaican proverb that you're showing as a similar one is teeth and tongue must meet. Think before you speak. That's what you're saying. All right. Now, but let's think about it. So, can we then say that an advice being given by the teacher that if you're going to live and walk the path of wisdom, we must recognize that there's virtue in silence and we should be restrained in our speech? Is that the advice? Be restrained. Don't talk too much. Is that it? Are you comfortable with that, or is it a little problematic? Is that the advice? So that's a suggestion. So silence and restraint is the advice being given to wise people who are following the path of wisdom. Sometimes it's not every time you react. It's not every time you respond. It's not every time that you speak. Let's look at some ways that is worked out further on in the Proverbs. And Sister Edna, you're going to continue to read for us. Read 11 verse 12. What does it say?
I'm not seeing the, 11, 12. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but the one who has understanding holds their tongue.
So the idea is there's a cluster of proverbs that seem to be passing on this important lesson. be restrained in your speech. Don't just quick to talk, and don't just talk plenty. Be a little measured, be restrained, be careful of what you're saying. And here we find in chapter 11, verse 12. Do you get a sense that the suggestion is, rather than being condemnatory in your speech, it is better to be silent or to be restrained? You getting that sense? Yes, you're getting it. Yeah. So whoever derides their neighbor has no sense. No, the teacher is a little bit harsh. You don't find him a little harsh. Has no sense. But the one who has understanding holds their tongue. So the wise person is the one who will practice restraint. Remember what we said about wisdom? An important side of wisdom is self-control, isn't it? Disciplined living is about self-control, controlling ourselves. But here's a challenge. Here's a challenge with self-control. If disciplined living is about self-control, listen to this reminder from James chapter 3. James says, the sage in the New Testament in James says, we can control everything, but the hardest thing to control is the speech. Let me read it. Chapter 3. Just to remind you of it. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. My God. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by humankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is restless evil and full of deadly poison. Is this serious? Is that serious thing? You don't find it that way? But you don't regard your tongue as that, yes? What? Again? Okay, yeah, James, oh yes, thank you. James chapter 3, that was straight from the Bible, no addition. James chapter 3 from verse 3 to verse 8. No, this is the New International Version. Yes, the New International Version. James 3, verse 3 to 8. It's a little harsh, eh? It says, you can turn a big horse with a little bit in their mouth. You can turn a big ship with a little rudder. But the tongue is like a spark that sets the forest fire ablaze. The tongue is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by humankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. How you feel about this? What is your kind of feeling and thoughts about that? You have to use the microphone so the others can hear. Can you? Yes. So the others can benefit from your... Yes. Please, sorry to put you through the trouble.
Forget what I was going to say. No, ask the question again. Yes. I tell you, I'm going to forget.
No, I was asking what is our reaction and response to such a harsh sounding statement from the sage in James.
And remind me of the statement again.
It is that no human being can tame the tongue. It is restless evil and full of deadly poison. All that the tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell.
No, I mean, what I was going to say is it's the mind.
Is the mind?
I mean, it's the mind. I mean, you know, that is, James is saying it's the tongue, but the tongue is under the control of the mind.
But there's out of the abundance of the heart, mouth speaks.
Well, that is true.
Right.
Yeah, that is true. And that is where self-control,
Yes.
is something that is difficult to learn and that only experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Depends
Yes.
on your personality too. It
Yes.
does also depend on your personality.
Right. Yeah.
I am someone who likes to express immediately, but it's not necessarily
A good
the
thing.
way to go. No.
Yeah. So the suggestion is restraint.
Yes.
Restraint. Be measured in our speech. Don't react. And the idea of Proverbs chapter, what was it? Chapter 11 and verse 12. Whoever derides their neighbor has no sense, but one who has understanding holds their tongue. Even, it's a kind of a statement against one, condemnatory speech, and about escalating. I don't know if there's a word called escalatory. I don't know. The escalatory speech. In the face of disagreements, or an argument, it is prudent not to engage in the kind of speech that may escalate the situation, may set the fire more, and may push the fire a little bit more. So there's this cluster of proverbs that seem to be saying, be measured, be restrained, even in the face of provocation. Do not engage in condemnatory or in escalatory speech, nor retaliatory speech. Let's look at 12, verse 16. You can bring it back up for us. 12:16 says, listen to what it says. Fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. Fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. And that's how we do it. Me not take your talk, or me not take back my talk. That is how we do it, you know. That is how we do it. You know, hear that on the road all the time, you know. So there's almost an automatic response, So there's this retaliatory speech. But if we are going to live wise, if we are going to live by trusting God, if we are going to live in obedience to God, the teacher is saying, watch your speech. Do not engage. Do not allow your speech to be measured, and allow some restraint to be a part and parcel of what we say. And Proverbs 21, verse 23. You know what it says? Is it up there? 21. Read it for me, please.
Where are we now? Oh,
21, 23, yes.
okay. Those who guard their mouths and their tongues.
No, 21, 23, yes. Mm.
Oh, am I right? Did I do the right thing? Those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. That's Proverbs 21 to 23. Did I read the wrong thing?
No, yes.
Fool vents all his anger, but the wise hold.
Yeah.
Okay.
A fool vents
All his anger.
All his anger, but the wise hold it back. Sorry
hold it
about
back.
that. Okay.
A fool vents all his anger, but the wise hold it back. So you see, it's a cluster of proverbs. It seems to be suggesting that, silence is sometimes important. In the face of some things, don't say anything. Kind of like Jesus, he opened not his mouth. Sometimes you have to open not your mouth. And at other points, be a little restrained. Be restrained, measured, be measured. Because what you're going to do is that you're going to end up condemning others, and therefore you are participating in perverted speech. You're going to end up escalating a situation, destroying harmony, destroying the peace, and creating problems. Or you're going to end up creating real harm and real hurt. A fool vents all his anger, but the wise hold it back. Have you ever heard people say, me as somebody who just talk my mind, we just talk my mind. I have to say how I feel. I don't care if you want vex. Is there anything wrong with that?
Yes.
Is there anything wrong with that?
Yes.
Yeah, somebody just have to talk my mind. They don't care how you feel. If you want vex, you vex. The truth is an offense, it's not a sin. I have to just talk my mind. What is wrong with that? It's not good Christian behavior.
Wrong.
Why? What's wrong?
Because you must speak the truth, but speak it in love.
With love. So what does that make me do? It says a fool vents all his anger, but the wise hold it back. Don't say it. Yes. Yes. So it really is almost a challenge to us to be aware of the ways in which our speech can be negatively impactful. So here's an important observation that the teacher in Proverbs is making. Speech will impact. It will impact the lives of others. It will influence and affect others for good or for ill. It will affect the society. It will affect the world in which we live. Proverbs 12, verse 18. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise bring healing. So we can either choose to be reckless or to be wise. Our speech can be healing, or it can pierce like sword, or it can be perverted or restorative. That is the challenge. And there is an important lesson, and the lesson is this: those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. What is that suggesting? Those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. That this perverted speech is eventually self-destructive. It is eventually self-destructive. So let's look at chapter 15 and a few of other verses. I think about 5 of them coming up. I want to just look at them quickly and make an observation and make another response to it, and then we can stop for a conversation. So will someone read that for us, please? There are selected verses taken from chapter 15, about 7 verses. Can we have a kind reader? Proverbs 15.
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the heart of fools are not upright. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good a timely word is. Light is a messenger's eyes. In a messenger's eyes, bring joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones.
Can I ask you to read it again for us, please? Let's pay attention to it, because I would like you to draw out for us. Later on, I'm going to ask you in a minute or two, what are the important principles of speech that we are learning from these proverbs? Go ahead, please.
A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. The lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not upright. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good a timely word is. Light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones.
I'm going to ask you, share a thought with your neighbor, and in a moment, share for us. What are some important lessons or principles about speech that the teacher in Proverbs is passing on to us that you think we could pay attention to and try to incorporate in our life of faith? What are the thoughts that come to your mind? Let me give you a moment, probably a minute to think about it. If you have someone beside you or around, you can share a thought, share ideas, and then we share generally so we can all benefit from your reflection, from your insight, from your discernment. Think about it. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. Lips of the wise spread knowledge, but the hearts of fools are not upright. A hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good a timely word is. Light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones. Chapter 15, right across Proverbs, there are these references to speech, making it very important for faith and for godliness, for a life that reflects wisdom, obedience, and trust in God, for a life that creates the harmony that God intends for God's creation. All right? Let's hear the thoughts. Let's hear the... All right? Are you ready? What are the lessons, Brother Kirk? What are the lessons about speech? What are the principles? What are the guiding lights that is being presented here? So you're still... All right, any thoughts? Yes, just use the microphone so because we can't hear you, and we need others on Zoom and on YouTube to benefit from this one conversation we're having in 3 different places. Yes? Okay.
We feel it's about self-discipline,
Self-discipline.
self-control too, where the tongue is concerned. And there's a part there, it's about encouragement, where it says, a person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good a timely word is. If you look on timely there,
Yes.
and where it said encouragement, the light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to somebody else's heart.
Okay.
So when you speak a good word, you're bringing joy to somebody else.
All right.
So it's not just about...
Right. So restorative speech brings joy
Yeah.
to the lives of others.
Yeah.
That's the potential and the possibility it has.
Yeah.
And that
I
encouragement.
remember you are to love your neighbor, so
Right.
you want to bring joy
Right.
to your neighbor.
And encouragement gives also joy and gives life to others. Yes. But you say it's also about self-discipline. Self-discipline is reflected in discipline in our speech. Okay, thank you.
That is what wisdom is about.
Wisdom is about.
It teaches you
Yes.
self-discipline.
Discipline. Thank you. Yes.
Well, sir, I was coming up to say there's life and death in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
There's so much life that can come forth. You said it. There's life in it. So this can bring what you choose to say or express, because this is speech, but even persons who can't speak can express, can propagate life through their actions or through their words.
And sometimes the life is the encouragement you give to others, or does the beat down of the spirit of others that comes from that. Yes. All right, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody online? Not learning anything about speech from these proverbs? Harsh and hot-tempered words antagonize others. What's the idea? That it leads to more strife? But soft and gentle words are a tree of life, calming and healing people in situations of conflict. That's a lesson we should take away, Yes, brother.
Pastor, I think that one of the things that we are learning is the power of words.
Power of words.
In other words, when you say something, it just doesn't go up in the air and disappear. It is piercing someone, or it is encouraging someone to do something with their lives. So words are important, and we need to pause before we say anything and then calculate the value of what we are saying to the other people who listen.
Is there a saying that says something about words spoken can never be, or does, I don't, what? Three things that, say it. Yeah, maybe help us. Yes, help us. I don't remember that. I don't remember. See if you can remember.
There are four things that come not back: the spoken word, the spent arrow, the past life, and the neglected opportunity.
That's it. Okay. All right, so we're learning all of these things.
Yeah.
What, you did hear?
Sorry. Oh, okay. It's the four thing. There are four things that come not back: the spoken word, the spent arrow, the past life, and the neglected opportunity.
Yeah.
Spoken word don't come back. And if you think about it, because as I said, one of the important things about Proverbs is how practical it is. Some things that persons have said to you that you just never ever forget, for good or ill. And every time you remember it, the pain is relived of the hurt it caused is relived, or the joy it brought is relived. That it lingers, and you say, I forgive, but I can't forget.
Yeah, there are some comments.
Yes, go ahead, please.
From YouTube. Let's see. Wayne Finnegan, be thoughtful before speaking. There is virtue in remaining silent. Often think twice, then say nothing. He continues, he says, the Chinese have an adage, 4 horses can never overtake the tongue.
Okay.
4 horses can never overtake the tongue.
That's a new one.
Maisel Lawrence says, every day bucket go a well. One day the bottom must drop out. Mojo, and yet the same tongue can calm a time of brewing trouble.
Right.
And express kindness and encouragement.
Which is the proverb that's good words appropriately spoken can bring joy to others and can calm a situation. That's 23 and 30.
Right.
Yeah. joy in giving an apt reply, and how good a timely word is. Light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones. That's what Mojo was saying to us. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, and Mojo said, Mojo said, should we have included verse 12? Mockers resent correction, so they avoid the wise.
Go again, say it again.
Mojo says, should we have included verse 12?
Yes.
Which says, mockers resent correction,
Yes.
so they avoid the wise.
Yes. We're coming to that. Yes.
Yeah, Wayne Finnegan continues with some more. He says, anger resides in the bosom of fools.
Yeah.
Speech should be edifying, encouraging, kind, and uplifting.
Restorative.
If you can't be kind and loving to your neighbor, then it probably would be wise to remain still and avoid saying anything harsh or cruel.
Yes. That
Then
sounds like Proverbs, yes. Sounds like an important teaching from the teacher.
And Arlene Thomas says, once something is said, it can't be taken back,
Right.
despite apologies and printed retractions, etc.
Right.
And then Faith says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold.
Yeah.
And she says, words can be damaging.
Yes. It can be. Yes. We really have to give attention to our speech. I think we are concluding some important reflections. That our speech should be appropriate, and by appropriate we mean life-giving, we mean encouraging, we mean bring joy, and not destructive. That our speech should be timely. That you talk about apt speech and a time and a place for everything. Speech should be timely, speech should be life-giving, and speech should eventually be praiseworthy. Before we close, I'd like to say this, that the teacher is not suggesting that we should only tell people nice things and only say to people what they want to hear. And so in order for the speech to be godly, it has to be always, cuddling you up and saying good things and ignoring the issues. That's not what the Proverbs is saying at all. I tell you why. When you listen to Proverbs 27, 5 and 6, listen to what it says. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Think about that for a moment. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. You will notice from Proverbs that the teacher is not so concerned with fragile egos. You notice that? And persons who cannot take correction. That the teacher makes some very harsh statements, call people fools, it call them unwise, all these harsh phrases. It is not so concerned with protecting fragile egos, because remember, the very basic definition of a fool is one who cannot see their wrong and consequently cannot accept corrections. That's a fool, Can't say that you're wrong and can't accept correction. That's the basic definition of a fool. So Proverbs 17 and verse 10, a rebuke strikes deeper into a discerning person than 100 blows to a fool. A rebuke strikes deeper in a discerning person than 100 blows to a fool. So the idea then, here's what I'm trying to say. It is not suggesting that there's no place or room for rebuke or correction. It is not that you should not rebuke or correct. It is not the how. It is not the why, but the how. It is, in other words, we are encouraged and called upon to rebuke and to correct. But at the same time, there's a way to do it. There is a way to do it that is not going to bring greater harm and greater pain. So the recommendation is that, yes, we must rebuke, but we must rebuke wisely. Rebuke wisely. So the question you're going to ask is, how do we rebuke wisely? How do we rebuke wisely? Well, if the aim of the rebuke is to bring peace to the individual and to secure the well-being of the community, then that could be considered wise rebuke. And we are not truly a community if we are not able to rebuke, but also to receive rebuke and to receive correction. That it is never a true community if every time I talk to you, we have to walk on eggshell. I have to be careful how I say it because my temper is so short and I am so close to the fuse, and it's going to create a whole heap of problems. And after a while, I'm not talking to you again. Done with you because of what you have said. That's not a true community. That's not a true community. Hear the Proverbs again. Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise rebuke to a listening ear. So it is truly a community if we are able to give and to take, to rebuke, to argue, to disagree, and to work out our argument and still maintain harmony, and still maintain the peace, and still maintain the community. This wise rebuke requires skill, requires grace. Grace that is ours by the Spirit of God, and if we adhere to the voice of wisdom. I close with this reminder. Proverbs is not going to spend a lot of time telling us about how to worship and what are the important rituals of worship. What it tells us, though, is that worship means nothing if it is not accompanied by lives that are pleasing to God. And a measure of our faith, a measure of our wisdom is through our speech, how we talk to people, whether our speech is restorative or perverted. And we have to be careful, in the words of James, that out of the same mouth we don't have praise and cursing. We don't have praise and cursing. Maybe the challenge that all of us, you and I, should take away from this is to give attention to our speech, what we say, and how we say it, and why we say it. And to remember that it is not just a right that I have. You know, we say, man, I don't pay taxes for my mouth, so me can't say anything me want to say. No, that's not it. Even though we're not paying taxes, at least not yet. But we can pay fines if you say the wrong thing, and can be sued for it. So you actually can pay taxes for it. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we create and maintain the community that God is calling us to? A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Let's pause here for tonight. Brother Lawrence, is there any final comment you have there?
Let me see. I think there were actually some. Let me go from the bottom.
Yes.
Sister Pam Kelly says, make sure your brain is engaged before you put your mouth into gear.
Okay.
Then Sister Natalie, Dietrich Jones, being quiet or circumspect in speech is a positive and not a negative.
Did somebody it can't be misquoted?
Sister Edna said at times we have to count to 10 before responding. And Natalie had said something earlier to motor massive, keep your mouth. Let me go to YouTube. All right, reading from the bottom. Think before you speak. That was Darrell White. Wayne Finnegan, there's a place to be firm, decisive, and pointed. However, words must be spoken in kindness to correct and uplift. And Sophia Brooks said, if you don't have nothing good to say, don't say anything.
Amen.
I think I have covered them with that.
And that's a good way to say amen.
Amen, church. All right, so I have a few notices for us this evening. The first of which is the Bethel Baptist Church Healing Ministry presents the second of two benefit performances of the University Singers in concert. So if you missed the first of the two shows, don't worry. The second one is this weekend, this Saturday, June 15th at 4 p.m. The cost of the ticket is $3,500. All proceeds are in aid of the Healing Ministry, and the tickets are available at the Bethel Baptist Church Cyber Center. Bicep Barbecue is on the 28th of June. Tickets are available at a cost of $2,500 for chicken or pork and $2,750 for escovitch fish. The tickets are available from any of the members of the Brotherhood. The proceeds are in aid of the Bethel Youth Summer Employment Program, which is BICEP. The prayer ministry is inviting persons to join in writing submissions for the Advent booklet to be prepared for publication later this year. They are also asking members of the diaspora to participate, so they want to hear from you by the 20th of June. JBU Summer Camp 2024 is coming. The theme is God in Me, the Real Deal. Registration takes place online, so see notices for details. We ask that you remember in prayers those who are mourning the loss of family members. So, as we spoke about the power of the tongue, we can use that in helping to support many of our brothers and sisters who are in mourning. Sister Roxine Nickel lost her brother, Mr. Ellis Nickel, and the funeral is this Saturday, June 15th at 11 o'clock at the Church of God of Prophecy, 47 Bowers Drive, Old Harbor in St. Catherine. Please continue to be in prayer for Brother Warren Nelson, the passing of his father, Mr. Kenneth Nelson. And please continue to be in prayer for the family of Sister Christine Edwards, who passed away. Continue to be in prayer for Sister Henrietta Baxter, who lost her nephew in Florida. And please also to continue to be in prayer for the family of Brother George Reed, who also passed. We must also continue to pray for our members and friends who are ill at home or who are in hospital. Some of them may have not been mentioned, but keep them in mind. The prayer line is available Sundays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., so call or WhatsApp. The number is listed, 876-771-3217, or you may be able to request a prayer by emailing bbprayerline@gmail.com, or send your prayer request online by going to Bethel Baptist Halfway Tree or BethelBaptistHWT.com and clicking on prayer requests, and someone will get back to you. So I'd like to invite you all to join with us in our closing hymn, Take My Life and Let It Be. Huh? Yeah. I don't know if you want me to lead. Can begin. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my moments and please let them. Take my hand. my silver and my gold.
Not a mite would I withhold. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. It shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasure store. Take my ever only, all for thee, ever only, all for thee.
Let us close. May God's wisdom guide our tongues so that his grace is always reflected in our speech. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you.